Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I have my Newts Magical Readathon TBR. It's that time of year. The nasty, exhausting wizarding tests are almost upon us. If you are unfamiliar with the Newts Magical Readathon, which I am sure that at this point you are not, it is the second stage in a series of readathons that are based on the tests that the students take at Hogwarts. The creator of this readathon is of course the lovely G from Book Roast. She has really put a whole ton of effort into everything that goes along with this readathon, like just the actual readathon, the prompts, the aesthetics that we have, the career pack and everything. There is a whole lot that goes into this readathon and there is a whole ton of information, so if you are unfamiliar with this readathon at all, I will put a link to G's Newts announcement video in my description box, because in the description box of her video she has everything that you need to know about the Owls, the Newts and the Magical Readathon overall. So if you are a Slytherin and you are studying arithmancy, potions or history of magic, I will put a link up here to that recommendations video and you can go check it out. So the career that I'm going for is Magizoologist, and to pass my Newts I need an outstanding in care of magical creatures and an exceeded expectations in both charms and herbology, which will be a total of 7 books, which, you know, it isn't bad. I should hit that. But as you guys know, I do also do my Bookopoly video. Bookopoly did go up the day before this video is going up, and I did mention in that video that the TBR for the Newts Magical Readathon would also contain a lot of Bookopoly books, but the reason that I am posting 2 TBRs is that I want them to be cohesive on their own instead of my Newts Magical Readathon TBR just being jumbled into Bookopoly. I only need to read 7, which will be 3 in care of magical creatures, 2 in herbology and 2 in charms. However, there are also many other subjects that I can take. Those are just the ones I need for my career. So as I said, I have 12 books. I have 3 for care of magical, 3 for herbology, 3 for charms and 3 for astronomy. That will both get me the grades I need to pass my tests and become a Magizoologist, and also fits all of my Bookopoly books and book club books and buddy reads etc. into my Newts TBR. So I have rambled on for quite a bit now. I always struggle with explaining this readathon just because there is so much that goes into it and it's so well thought out and intricate. But now I'm just going to move straight on into my TBR, starting with astronomy. So the first prompt for astronomy is to read a book with moon in the title or anywhere on the cover, and for that I will be reading Dead to the World by Charlene Harris. This is the 4th book in the Sookie Stackhouse series, and this one is also on my Bookopoly TBR. This is book 4 in a paranormal romance series that follows Sookie Stackhouse, who works in a bar and can read people's minds. One day a vampire walks into the bar where Sookie works and she is incredibly attracted to him because she cannot read his mind. Her relationship with this particular vampire does end up with her being dragged into a whole world of vampire and supernatural politics, as the other vampires do like to take advantage of her special ability to help them with interrogations. I'm not going to go on about this or any of my Bookopoly books too much because a lot of you guys will have just seen my Bookopoly TBR, but I am very excited to get to this one as book 4 is a lot of your guys' favourites. To achieve and exceeded expectations in astronomy, I will have to read a book with night in the title or the series title name, and for that I will of course be reading Nevernight by J. Kristoff. Nevernight is the first book in the Nevernight Chronicles, which is an adult fantasy series that follows, I think she's 16-year-old Mia Corvair, who is on her way to a school of assassins to train to become an assassin so that she can eventually avenge the death of her father and the incarceration of her mother. This is one of my favourite books. J. Kristoff is one of my favourite authors. I have actually, just before filming this a few hours ago, I have booked tickets to go to the Dark Dawn launch in Manchester, which I am obviously very excited about. I'm so excited to meet J. Kristoff, and especially as it is on the eve of the 3rd book's release. So I will have a copy of Dark Dawn in my hands one day before its official release, which is very exciting. I do tend to reread books in series in anticipation for the next installment, as well as that the Book Junkie Book Club, which was created by Rachel Murray, do have Nevernight, God's Grave and Dark Dawn as their book of the month for July, August and September, and I am going to be a co-host on the Dark Dawn show, so I would very much like to reread the first 2 books in this series so that I am ready to read Dark Dawn as soon as I have it in my hands. And then to achieve an outstanding in astronomy, I will have to read a science fiction. I will of course be reading Gemina by J. Kristoff again and Amy Kaufman. This is the 2nd book in the Illuminae files. Last month I did read Illuminae and I absolutely loved it. This is another one that is on my Bookopoly TBR, so I won't go too much into it, but this is a young adult science fiction series that is told entirely in mixed media, and the the first book starts off with two teenagers who have just broken up when their planet is attacked by this evil corporation. Most of the civilians are evacuated onto this fleet of ships. However, our two main characters are on different ships, and soon all hell starts to break loose and they are trying to manage it from their respective ships, find out what's going on, and try and save the entire population of these ships. I think I will be saving Gemina for my flight to and from Rome later this month, as the way that I read Illuminate is that I listened to the audiobook at the same time as reading this physically, and I did find that to be a really immersive experience. I do struggle to concentrate on reading when I am on a flight, so I'm hoping that both listening to this and reading it at the same time will help me keep focused and be able to actually read on my flight to Rome. Next, we will move on to the subject that I need to achieve an outstanding in, which is care of magical creatures. And the first prompt for this is Follow the Spiders, Why Couldn't It Be Follow the Butterflies? A book title that starts with the letter A for ARAGOG. I did struggle with this one a little bit, but then I did find it the perfect choice, and I'm going to be reading Arrowheart by Rebecca Skye. This book was kindly sent to me by my friend Gavin from Gavin Hetherington, as both Rebecca Skye and Gav are Wattpad authors, and he wanted to promote her debut novel and send it to me so that I can read it and also hopefully love it. So I don't know a lot about this. The most I know about this is that Rebecca Skye is an absolute sweetheart. But as for the plot of this, I think it is like an urban fantasy. I feel like it's going to be written in a contemporary style but with fantastical elements. It follows a girl who is blessed by the gods, and her kiss will make any guy fall in love with her. She sees this more of a curse than a blessing, especially when she starts to have feelings for a guy, but she doesn't want to kiss him because that will take his free will away. For an exceeded expectations in Care of Magical, I will have to read a book that is under 300 pages, and for that I will be reading The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White, which comes in at around 280 pages, I believe. This book is also on my Bookopoly TBR, but I did forget to give a synopsis for it, so I will do a full synopsis here. But what I do want to say about this is that this was randomly picked for my Bookopoly TBR, so I Amazon Primed myself a copy so I can start this pretty early on in August, and I hate this. It's like super shiny. It feels like it's been laminated, and I'm just not a fan. You can tell with the glare, like it's almost like a library book, but I had to pay more than a normal standard paperback price for this. I'm guessing it's because it hasn't been published under a UK publisher, and I don't like it. It is floppy though. It's good that it's floppy. So I do actually own a few books by Kirsten White that I am interested in. This is not one of them, but like I said, it was randomly picked for Bookopoly, so I do have to read it. And from what I remember about this, from when it was released and a few people read it, this follows Elizabeth Frankenstein, who is about to be thrown onto the streets when she is taken in and adopted by Victor Frankenstein's parents. To keep her new family from turning her out, she does everything that she possibly can to please Victor Frankenstein, who we obviously know from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is a mad scientist. I also believe that he is prone to mood swings and just generally not a great guy. So that is all I know about the synopsis of this one. It was not a book that I ever intended to read unless I enjoyed Kirsten White's other works, but I know quite a few people last year did really enjoy this, so I'm happy to give it a try. The third prompt for magical creatures is Grab Onto Fawkes's Tail, read a book with a bird on the cover, and for that I will be reading Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I am buddy reading the entire Grishaverse with JD Ray Reads. This will be the first book that we are reading that I haven't read before. I have just reread the entire Grisha trilogy, but I'm very excited to get to this one. I know everybody absolutely loves this book, not so much the duology. I feel like Crooked Kingdom is a lot more polarizing, but the general consensus of Six of Crows is that it is amazing. I am of course excited to see what the hype is about. I'm especially excited to find out what the deal with Kazbrecka is, and all I really know about the plot of this one is that it is an extremely character driven book that follows 6 characters trying to perform a heist. However, I believe that the book, as I said, it's character driven, is more about the characters than the heist itself, so I'm going into it expecting it to be a slow burn. I've heard that the beginning can be quite a drag, but the end is worth all of the effort you put into getting through the beginning, and this one is also once again on my Bookopoly TBR. Moving on to charms, the first prompt is to read a book that you think has a gorgeous cover, and this one, it needs no explanation. I will be reading God's Grave by J. Kristoff yet again. I wonder if I can get any more J. Kristoff books on this TBR. That would be awesome. So Godgrave is obviously the sequel to Nevernight and the second book in the Nevernight Chronicle. As with Nevernight, I have read this before, and this one will just be a reread so that I'm ready for Dark Dawn when it's released. For an exceeded expectations in charms, the prompt is to read a comic, a graphic novel, or a manga. Now I do have 2 choices for this. It is going to depend how much time I have and also what I'm feeling like at the time, but I do have 2 mangas to choose from. The first one is Children Children of the Whales Volume 4, and the second one is Orange the Complete Collection Volume 2. These are both very different, but they are both series that I am currently working on. If I had to choose between the two on preference of which one I want to read, it would be Orange the Complete Collection Volume 2, but that is obviously so much thicker than Children of the Whales Volume 4, so it will definitely depend on how much time I have during the month, because I definitely don't want to rush Orange, as the first half of this series has been my favourite book of 2019 so far. I want to savour it. I desperately need to know what happens, but I don't want it to end, so I definitely don't want to rush this while I do really want to read it. This one is a contemporary manga series with science fiction elements that follows a girl who receives a letter from her future self saying that if she does not change a few things, a boy in her class will be dead before the end of the year. Trigger warnings in this for suicide and depression. It deals with a lot of hard topics, but I absolutely love the friendship group in this, and there's also romance elements that I love and an absolutely perfect love triangle. So if I can, I would like to get to Orange. If not, I will read Children of the Whales Volume 4 by Abi Umeda, and this one is obviously Volume 4 in a fantasy manga series that follows a 14-year-old boy called Chakuro who lives on this floating island called the Mud Whale. His community is very isolated. None of them know anything about the outside world. They do know that there is an external civilization to their community, but they don't know anything about them, and they don't know why they are on the Mud Whale. One day when they are out scouting supplies on an island that they float past, they find the first human they have ever encountered from outside of their community, and that kicks off a whole chain of events. So in the month of August, I will be reading one of these. We'll just have to wait and see which one it is. And then the final prompt for charms is Spongify, read a paperback book. Now I am assuming that this book is going to be paperback, but I have reserved a book at the library. It isn't in yet, but that is going to be Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. This is another book that I don't know a lot about because it was chosen randomly in my Bookopoly TBR. I added this to my Goodreads TBR on a recommendation from Cash from What Cash Read. All I know is that Theft of Swords is the first two books in an epic adult fantasy series, so this is a bind-up. I think one is a thief and I think the other is a mercenary. That is all I know about this. I am continually getting more and more into adult epic and high fantasy, so I am excited to try this one, but I haven't heard a lot of people talking about it before, so I don't know a whole lot about the plot or the general consensus on how much people like this series, but I guess we'll find out how I feel about it in August. And then the last subject I will be tackling is herbology, and the first prompt for herbology is Mandrake. Quick, put your headphones on, listen to an audiobook. To fulfill this prompt, I will be listening to the audiobook of Startled by His Fairy Shorts by Louise Renison. This is another one off my Bookopoly TBR. I think this is the last one off my Bookopoly TBR. This is book 7 in the Confessions of Georgie Nicholson series, which is my personal favourite series from childhood. The last book in this 10-book series was released when I was in college, so I never got around to finishing the series off. So I am rereading these via audiobook so that I can finally get some closure and read that last book in the series. This is a young adult coming of age story told in diary format, and it just follows a girl from the ages of 14 through 16. I think she's 16 at the end of the series, and everything that happens in that time, like going through puberty, dating, her first kiss and things like that. It is extremely funny, which is one of the reasons why I love it so much. As well as that, the audiobooks are all available on Scribd, and they are all narrated by the author Louise Renison, who sadly passed away in 2016. So listening to the audiobooks and having the author narrate them is definitely a really unique experience. The second prompt for herbology is to read a book that is in between 350 and 390 pages. I struggled like hell to find a book for this, but I will be reading the Starlit Wood New Fairy Tales by a whole host of adult fantasy authors. This is a book that I do currently have out from my library. It was definitely a complete cover buy because I just love how it looks, and as well as that, there are quite a few authors that I have either read from and enjoyed before, or I want to sample some of their work that have written fairy tales for this collection. An example of a few of those would be Naomi Novik, Shauna Maguire and Marjorie Liu. I am not a huge fan of short stories or anthologies. I'm hoping because these are fairy tales I'll like them a little bit more, and because they are adult fantasy stories, but we will have to see about that one, because if you have been here for a while you'll know that I'm not a huge fan of short fiction, but we'll see. I'm sure there's a short story collection for me out there somewhere. And then finally, to get an outstanding in herbology, the prompt is to read a book with a flower on the cover. Now, if for some crazy reason I have time to read 11 books in August, but I can't read 12, this one will be the one that I don't read. For my career path of magic zoologist, I do only need to achieve and exceeded expectations in herbology, but as I have made a TBR that fulfills all 3 prompts for the other 3 subjects, I felt strange just leaving it at 2 prompts for herbology, so I have decided to assign a book to the outstanding prompt for herbology. But if I don't get to any book this month, it will be this one. And that book is The Descendant of the Crane by Joan He. This was kindly gifted to me by Cody from Cody's Book Corner for my birthday. I do like to prioritise the books that are gifted to me by people in the community for things like Christmas and my birthday. So I do definitely want to get to this sometime soon. It's just not necessary. It's not on my Bookopoly TBR and I don't have to fulfill this prompt to beat my career path for the Newts. So I may not get around to it, but I also may get around to it, obviously. So this is one of my more anticipated releases of 2019. You guys know me, I don't have many anticipated releases because I normally don't have a clue what's being released anyway. But I do love my East Asian fantasy, and this is a young adult East Asian fantasy that follows a princess whose father, the emperor, has just died. She is about to become the empress, but she is convinced that her father has been murdered, and this follows her trying to find out who murdered her father. I believe that it is very political. Cody also just read this and I think she quite liked it. Cody and I do have similar reading tastes, so I think if Cody enjoyed it, then I will probably enjoy it as well. I do very much want to read this and I hope that I get to it in August, but if you watch my Bookopoly TBR, you'll know that I am taking it a little bit easier in August, so it is unlikely I'll get to this one. But just in case, this one will get me an outstanding in herbology. So that is my Newts Magical Readathon TBR. As I just said, I'm taking it a little bit easier in August. I'm trying to prioritise a few other things over reading, which is very difficult with Bookopoly and also with the Newts. But at the end of the day, the Magical Readathon will roll around again next year, and I have also relieved a little bit of pressure off myself from Bookopoly. So I'm hoping I can take the month of August to chill out a little bit and play some video games, watch some TV, plan my holiday and go on my holiday, obviously. But I am a bookworm at heart. I will always have a book in my hand every spare moment, and as the Magical Readathon is my favourite readathon that currently exists, I definitely did have to participate and also set a TBR. If by some miracle I do manage to read all 12 of these books, I will continue and fulfill some of the other prompts for the other subjects, as well as the 4 subjects that we talked about today. At Owl's level, I did also pass Ancient Runes, Divination, History of Magic and Potions. So if I do finish these 12 books, I will then move on to some of those and see how much I can do. It is very unlikely, but you never know. I tend to find that if I say I'm not going to read a lot, I'm going to read a lot. So we'll just see how the month goes, and you can obviously keep up to date with my reading vlogs if you want to see like how I'm doing in almost real time. But that is it for my Newts Magical Readathon TBR. Please let me know if you have read any of these and what you thought of them. Please also let me know if you are participating in the Newts and what your career is. I know there are quite a few Magizoologists out there, so if you are also attempting to become a Magizoologist, then let me know what you will be using to fulfill your prompts. But that is it from me today, guys. Please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're a go when nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.